Prince Harry has launched an extraordinary attack on the Daily Mail newspaper.
Harry's reaction to the Australian tour coverage didn't look like a win at all. It looked like damage control, plain and simple. Instead of moving forward like everything went smoothly, he reacted like someone who saw headlines from the Daily Mail, Sky News Australia, and the Daily Mirror and thought, this is a problem. And instead of tackling what was actually reported, the focus shifted straight to pushing back through PR tactics.
Now, we know that their fake royal tour down under was a horrible mess. They didn't make as much money as they wanted because the tickets for both of their events just didn't sell. The Australian public shrugged their shoulders and ignored the couple, which is a nightmare for Harry and Meghan. The media and politicians were furious at the cost of security for the Australian taxpayer.
A formal complaint, sent through the Guardian's Australian arm, accused the Daily Mail of breaking an embargo, claiming they published tour details 5 days before arrival in Melbourne, including stop locations, notes, and even a Q&A. That's a serious claim. But Sky News Australia fired back, saying they didn't break any rules and only reported info already out there in the public domain. The Daily Mirror got pulled into the complaint too, but without clear details, which just added more confusion to the whole situation. Here's where it gets interesting. The couple's team had actually briefed selected media ahead of time, giving them itinerary details and background info under embargo.
Meghan tried to claim that she's the most trolled woman in the world, when the fact is that she trolls everyone else, and Prince Harry hammered the final nail in the coffin of his relationship with his father, the king, by slamming Charles's parenting skill.
That means journalists could prepare stories early, but had to wait for the green light to publish. It's a classic PR move to control timing and shape the narrative. But once journalists accept that deal, they're basically agreeing to play by those rules and give up control over when they publish. Now, the key issue. Did the Daily Mail actually break that agreement, or did they get the info on their own? That's everything. If they got it independently, then it's just standard reporting. No rules broken, and Sky News Australia's response strongly hinted at that, saying the information wasn't exclusive and was already public. That flips the whole accusation on its head. Calling the reporting aggressive doesn't really stick when you break it down.
The Australian website is said to have broken an embargo by publishing details of the couple's movements 5 days before they arrived in Melbourne. Now, an embargo, if you don't know, is when the press say, here's a piece of information, but you're not allowed to publish it until this date.
Aggressive describes behavior, not facts. And the facts here: a public couple, at public events, in public places. That's fair game for coverage. No special permission needed. Saying this kind of reporting creates a security risk or forces changes to plans sounds more like a push for total control than a real issue. And that's the bigger picture, wanting full control over how, when, and even if coverage happens. But that's not how journalism works. Public figures doing public things are going to be reported on, whether they like it or not. You can't invite attention and then complain when it shows up.
Daily Mail's reportedly aggressive handling of Prince Harry and Meghan's Australian trip has, according to sources who spoke to The Guardian, irreparably damaged the Sussex's willingness to brief the press ahead of future visits. How will the press survive not receiving those precious press releases from Harry and Meghan?
The tour itself followed a familiar royal playbook: hospital visits, appearances at the War Memorial, even that high-profile Bondi Beach moment, all designed to get maximum media exposure. But then came the twist. The same media attention they aimed for suddenly became a problem when it didn't follow their script. That contradiction sits right at the center of the whole media relationship. It's about wanting the spotlight, but only on strict terms. And when those terms aren't followed, the reaction isn't reflection. It's pushback, loud and clear. They want media coverage that brings in money, but at the same time, they want full control over what gets said and when it drops. That's the balance they're trying to strike, and it's a tricky one. Now here's the twist. The role of The Guardian adds a layer of irony. It's often seen by many observers as leaning supportive toward the Sussex side, especially in royal coverage. And it just so happens to be the outlet used to publish their complaint against the Daily Mail.
The Daily Mail dared to reveal what the couple would be up to when they were in Australia. You heard me right. They dared to do some journalism and to report on the activities of this fame-hungry couple.
That's not a random choice. It's strategic. When there's criticism to deliver, it gets funneled through The Guardian, which then puts it out to the public. And here's where things get interesting. The paper operates under a charitable trust model, meaning it doesn't rely on reader revenue the same way others do. That creates a totally different setup compared to the Daily Mail, which depends heavily on audience engagement and commercial success to survive. Meanwhile, the legal battle adds even more pressure. Harry is one of the claimants in a case against Associated Newspapers with allegations like phone hacking and surveillance, all of which have been strongly denied. But things took a turn when an email from Charlotte Griffith surfaced, raising questions about earlier statements made under oath. That kind of moment can shake the entire case. The final verdict will be huge. It won't just decide the case, it'll decide whether this whole legal fight was worth the cost, financially and reputationally. Because make no mistake, the stakes are massive. If things don't go his way, the financial hit could be serious.
The journalism they do is perfectly good, but their reporting on Harry and Meghan is horrible. And the reason why is because the Guardian newspaper is the in-house newsletter.
Legal costs in cases like this can spiral fast, sometimes going way beyond any payout. And while others involved, like Elton John, may have the resources to handle a loss, the situation here looks tighter. With reports of reduced speaking fees and less successful deals, this isn't a position where a massive loss just slides by unnoticed. Then there's the bigger picture from insiders. Sarah Louise Robertson pointed out something that connects the dots. She said Meghan reportedly didn't like the 2018 Australian tour because there was no pay and no ability to keep gifts. That lines up with claims from another source saying she could not believe she was not getting paid for the tour. That's a strong reaction. Fast forward, and the newer tour looks very different. It keeps the same charity appearances, but now there's a clear commercial side added in. It's like the original setup got an upgrade, turning visibility into value.
His husband, David Furnish, actors Sadie Frost and Elizabeth Hurley, against the publishers of the Daily Mail and Mail on Sunday, has concluded in London. Now, the allegations in that case include phone hacking, landline tapping, and the bugging of celebrity homes, all denied by the publisher.
Robertson also described Harry in a way that's been echoed by others, calling him someone who often speaks from a place of feeling wronged or overlooked. Not as an attack, but as an observation built over time. His public statements have followed a pattern, repeating themes of loss, pressure, and frustration across interviews and appearances. He said things like he felt lost, betrayed, completely powerless, and that the world leaves people feeling anxious, stressed, helpless, and completely overwhelmed. These aren't one-off comments. They show up again and again, forming a consistent tone that shapes how his story is being told. The pattern stays the same every time. The focus is on personal struggle, the institution's failures, his mother's fate, and his own journey through it all. The pain being described is real, no doubt about that. But the issue people point to is how that pain gets used, especially when it shows up in commercial settings, carefully managed and packaged for an audience.
One of those moaning minis. I think that's just his nature. He just loves to moan. He's a victim Eldred. That's what I think.
Well, I think that's right. And I suspect he's had too much therapy. He spent too long in California. And it's the view of Tom Bauer, whose brilliant new book about the Sussexes' betrayal is out now, who suggests that Meghan leveraged the idea of victimhood to get Harry out of the royal family in the first place. Meghan said to Harry, "They're treating you terribly. You're the victim."
Sarah Louise Robertson made a sharp comparison that hits right at the core. She said Diana didn't present herself the way Harry does. She showed empathy by focusing on others, not by repeating her own story again and again. That difference matters. Diana's approach was about connecting with people facing real hardship, while what we're seeing now feels more centered on personal narrative. And that's where the shift becomes clear. Diana's empathy was outward-facing. It was about them. The language Harry often uses leans inward. It's about him. Add the commercial layer on top, and suddenly everything starts to revolve around personal brand, personal image, and personal gain. From retreats to speaking fees to curated appearances, it all builds a very different picture. Even the rebranding plays into this. Dropping the full name and going with just Meghan isn't random. It's a calculated move. Single name branding is powerful, easy to search, and signals celebrity status. But here's the catch. That level of recognition has to be earned, not just claimed. And when a Roy Morgan poll showed that 81% of Australians said the tour didn't improve their opinion, it raised a big question about whether that branding really landed. What's also becoming more visible is the separation between their individual paths. Meghan's projects are clearly defined: her brand, her platforms, her events. The As Ever brand carries her name, not Harry's. The retreat had her front and center, with Harry appearing only briefly. Even the product-style content like outfit listings focuses entirely on her. Meanwhile, the shared Sussex identity still acts as the foundation. It's what gives both of them recognition and value.
You never heard his mother, Princess Diana, go on like that, did you, Mark?
No.
No. She just knew, she just had instant empathy and understood how hard people had it. And that was why she introduced Harry and William, which William's, really took up the cause of helping homelessness in the UK. And William doesn't sit and denigrate his childhood or go on about how hard he's had it, the Prince of Wales, because he knows that would sound ludicrous and it would make people hate the royal family.
But the way that value is being used is starting to split. Meghan is building something that can stand on its own, while Harry's role looks much more tied to the joint identity. And the difference in outcomes during the tour made that gap stand out even more. She had multiple commercial angles, events, appearances, brand tie-ins. He had a speaking engagement that struggled to draw the same level of attention. That contrast didn't go unnoticed. When you look at the bigger structure, the website, the branded products, the events, the speaking circuit, it all points to a system built on the Sussex name, but moving in two different directions. One side is expanding into individual branding. The other is still closely linked to the shared title. That's where the imbalance comes in.
She thinks she's really arrived because what she's worked out is with the algorithms on the internet, when people search, they can't be bothered with putting in Duchess of Sussex. So it's Meghan Markle or just Meghan. And this is how astute Meghan is in that way. She's crafty, Mark.
Meghan's approach looks like it's preparing for the future, building something that could continue, even if the royal connection fades. Harry, on the other hand, doesn't appear to have that same independent setup in place. And that leads to the bigger question people are starting to ask. What happens if the value of the Sussex title changes or weakens over time? Because right now, one side looks ready for that shift, and the other doesn't. Meghan has, as ever, and the growing identity of just Meghan. Harry, on the other hand, is still tied almost completely to a name built inside an institution, with no strong independent commercial identity standing on its own. That gap is hard to ignore, and the so-called aggressive journalism is exactly what's putting it on display. The embargo breach claim? That looks less like a real crisis and more like a PR move to shift attention. Instead of addressing what was actually reported, the focus flips to blaming the messenger. But the message itself, poll numbers, quiet crowds, short appearances, formal complaints, even those controversial clothing listings, none of that just appeared out of nowhere. That's the record of what happened, plain and simple.
She's got her platform. She's got what she's needed. And now this is about cashing in. And that's what we're doing. Do you know, Mark, she's been flogging off the clothes she's been wearing.
I know.
So when she went to meet these victims of the Bondi Beach attack,
Calling that kind of reporting aggressive doesn't change what it is. It's still documentation of public events. And the response pattern is becoming clear. Label the coverage as hostile, raise concerns like security risks, push complaints through friendly outlets, and then cut off access to those who don't follow the script. That's not random. That's a strategy. When it's said that the relationship with the press is irreparably damaged, it raises a bigger question. Damaged with who exactly? Because the outlets still getting access are the ones sticking closer to the preferred narrative. Meanwhile, those reporting things more directly, like the Daily Mail or Sky News Australia, are the ones being pushed out. That's not a total breakdown. It's a filter. Access stays with those who align and disappears for those who don't. It creates a system where coverage isn't just about facts. It's about who gets to stay inside the circle. Now the real test is coming. The British media landscape is bigger, louder, and way more competitive. You can't control it the same way. The Daily Mail alone has massive reach and isn't going to sit this out just because it's cut off from briefings. And Sky News has strong UK ties too, meaning coverage will keep coming from multiple angles, no matter what. So even without cooperation from PR teams, reporting doesn't stop.
Now, I'll tell you why Meghan has stepped in here. Because Meghan wants to control the narrative.
The managed version of events will exist, but right next to it, there'll be independent reporting showing a different side. And the public? They'll see both and decide for themselves. The Australian tour already created a record that can't be rewritten. Complaints won't erase it, statements won't undo it. And when the next tour hits, that same kind of scrutiny is going to follow, step by step. And here's the twist. The real damage might not be in press relationships at all. It might be in how things are recorded and remembered publicly. Because once something is out there, embargo or not, it sticks. That's why the embargo system matters so much in this situation. It's not just about timing, it's about control. Selected outlets get early access, agree to hold back, and in return, they're positioned to deliver coverage that lands exactly when and how it's planned. But when someone steps outside that system, whether by choice or by independent reporting, that control slips. And that's when things start to get tense, fast. Outlets that accept embargo deals aren't just getting early info, they're stepping into a relationship. Once they agree, they're inside the circle, playing by the team's rules and expecting future access in return. That's how the system keeps running. It rewards alignment and quietly sidelines anyone who steps out of line. So, when the Daily Mail's Australian branch published details before the embargo lifted, whether they broke the rules or got the info on their own, it shook that whole setup. That move disrupted the control mechanism, and just like that, the formal complaint followed. And not randomly, it was pushed through The Guardian, an outlet already seen as part of that inner circle. The way the complaint was framed wasn't accidental either. Words like aggressive, claims about security risks, and talk of irreparable damage all fit into a familiar narrative. It's messaging designed to flip the story, turning scrutiny into sympathy and criticism into something that looks like unfair targeting. Now, the most serious claim? That a Daily Mail reporter followed the advanced security team at the airport. That's a big accusation. It suggests surveillance, potential risk, even danger. But when you line it up with the actual context, things don't quite match up.
Also alleged that the Daily Mail followed the advanced security team from the airport and reported on its movements, raising fears that Harry and Meghan's safety had been put at risk. Here we go, folks. This is Harry and Meghan bingo, isn't it? Aggressive reporting, and now safety.
The couple arrived on a commercial flight, something already known ahead of time. Their movements across Australia were widely covered, with cameras everywhere and hundreds of approved photos released at every stop. And security? That was handled by official Australian federal and state police, working in coordination with the team. So the idea that one reporter tracking airport movements somehow broke through a tightly managed security operation, while that same operation was being photographed non-stop, raises serious questions. That kind of claim feels more like PR pressure than a clear-cut security threat. And this tension didn't just start here. Harry's issues with the Daily Mail go way back. The legal battle against Associated Newspapers reflects years of frustration, linked to the phone hacking scandal, specific past stories, and a long-standing distrust of tabloid culture. To be fair, that history isn't empty. Phone hacking was real, and people were affected. There were rulings and settlements that confirmed wrongdoing. But the current case? It's not just about those past events anymore. It's focused on more recent coverage and whether certain stories crossed legal lines. And then came a major twist, the Charlotte Griffith email. That piece of evidence challenged earlier statements made under oath, and that's not something small. When documented evidence conflicts with sworn testimony, it puts serious pressure on the entire case. Add to that reports about how certain statements were prepared, and suddenly the situation looks even more complicated. It raises questions about how the case has been handled and whether everything has been presented as clearly as it should be. Then there's the bigger media strategy. Sarah Louise Robertson described Meghan as someone who understands the system, calling her crafty, aware of algorithms, and focused on commercial outcomes. That's not random commentary. It's based on watching how the whole operation moves, from how stories are placed, to which outlets get access, to how narratives are shaped. It all points to a carefully managed approach. And when that approach gets disrupted, the reaction isn't subtle. It's loud, strategic, and impossible to miss. Just Meghan isn't random. It's a calculated move driven by algorithms and branding strategy. The Guardian briefings? That's about control. The embargo complaint? That's narrative management. Plain and simple. None of this is accidental or clueless. It's a PR system that knows exactly how media works and plays the game with purpose. And that purpose? Protect and grow the brand. Because the brand is the business. It needs positive coverage to keep value high, whether it's retreat tickets, speaking fees, product tie-ins, or curated content.
Why have they flown a press association journalist and photographer from the UK over to Australia to cover this fake royal tour?
When coverage turns negative, that value starts to drop fast. That's where the embargo system comes in. It helps secure favorable headlines from outlets inside the circle. But here's the twist. Complaints against outside outlets also serve a purpose. They create a whole new storyline, one built around pressure, criticism, and being targeted. And that narrative? It connects with a specific audience, the supporters who already feel sympathy. The numbers say it all. Around 19% responded positively, while 81% didn't change their view. That tells you exactly where the focus is. This strategy isn't about winning everyone over. It's about holding on to that core group and keeping them engaged. So every move, the complaint, the Guardian coverage, the talk of a damaged press relationship, it's all aimed at reinforcing that connection. It keeps the story alive for the people who are already invested, the ones who follow, attend events, and support the brand. From that angle, the embargo complaint actually makes sense as a PR move, even if it doesn't land the same way as a journalism issue. Because the original reporting, it was about public events in public spaces involving public figures, and it led to coverage that wasn't exactly flattering. So, the response flips the narrative. Instead of debating the facts, the focus shifts to how the story was reported, framing it as a problem with the press itself. That message then gets amplified through aligned outlets, reaching the audience most likely to agree. And just like that, the cycle completes itself. The reporting stays out there, unchanged. Poll results, public reactions, event turnout, all still visible. But the conversation shifts away from those details and onto the media battle instead. That's the real move here. Replace a difficult story with a more manageable one. Turn mixed reception into standing up to the press. One story is harder to control. The other can be shaped and repeated. And this pattern isn't stopping anytime soon. The next phase, especially in the UK, will bring even more attention. Major outlets will keep reporting, with or without access. Some will align with the preferred narrative, others won't, and both versions will exist side by side. At the end of the day, the audience decides what matters. The coverage, the reactions, the turnout, it all adds up to a bigger picture. And whether it's polls, public moments, or market response, the message comes through loud and clear. Australians saw the Sussex pitch, and most of them weren't buying it. Around 4 out of 5 people walked away unconvinced, and that says everything. Meanwhile, audiences across outlets like the Daily Mail and Sky News Australia kept watching, reading, and forming their own opinions. This isn't about a broken press relationship. The media will keep covering the story no matter what. The real issue? It's the disconnect with that 81% who said, no thanks. And that didn't come from media spin. It came from what people actually saw. Moments like the short retreat, the quiet crowds, the public reactions, and the constant controversies all added up. The coverage didn't create the story, it reflected it. Trying to shift the focus onto the press doesn't erase what's already out there. That's the key difference. The strategy may aim to blur that line, but the public record is still clear and it sticks. And when you look closer, the commercial side becomes impossible to ignore. Every appearance, every photo, every carefully staged moment feeds into a bigger system. The events bring attention, the attention drives interest, and the interest fuels revenue. Add an emotional layer, charity visits, serious locations, and suddenly those images carry even more weight. That's where things get uncomfortable. Without that emotional framing, it's just promotion. With it, the impact becomes deeper and more complicated. There's also a noticeable shift in roles. The structure around these events shows a growing focus on one side of the brand. The visibility, the projects, the spotlight, it's not evenly shared, and people are starting to pick up on that. Now all eyes turn to what happens next. The UK phase will bring even more attention, more coverage, and way more scrutiny. Major outlets will report from every angle, some aligned, some not, but the full picture will be out there for everyone to see. Two versions of the story will run side by side, the polished narrative and the unfiltered record. And the public? They'll compare, judge, and decide for themselves. If you made it this far, drop your thoughts below. What do you think is really going on here? Hit like if you found this interesting, and don't forget to subscribe to Crown Clash because I post the freshest news every day.